I love fishing, and when I'm in the summer and going fishing at a pond, in order to determine which fishing lure is actually effective, I have to consider the outside variables. For example, wind temperature and water depth. All these variables tell me which fishing lure is actually effective. And this can be applied to the affirmative team's case today. Although the affirmative team's case is a plan, you have to consider the outside variables to consider whether or not this plan is actually a pragmatic policy. And through this feature, I hope to show you why their plan is actually not rooted in facts and logic, and that their plan is not a pragmatic policy. Now, my first reason that you can believe this, you can remember as weapons aren't given to Hezbollah. Weapons aren't given to Hezbollah. Now, an article written by the Congressional Research Service, which is a governmental body in the United States, on April 21st, 2021 said, quote, "Some members have raised concerns about the possibility that the weapons or equipment provided to the LAF could be captured or diverted to Hezbollah. U.S. Defense and State Department officials have affirmed that the LAF is fully compliant with the end-of-use reporting and security requirements. In 2016, Defense Department officials testified that the Lebanese armed forces have consistently had the best end-of-use monitoring reporting of any military that we work with, meaning that the equipment that we provide to the Lebanese armed forces, we can account for it at any given time. Furthermore, it goes on to say, Lebanon has been a reliable recipient of direct commercial sales, as evidenced by their 100% favorable rate on Blue Lantern, end-of-use monitoring checks well above the global average of 75%. So what this really says is that the United States actually does end-of-use monitoring in Hezbollah, making sure that their weapons aren't being used for abuse. And what this says is that they actually had 100% for the rating, and the average rating is 75%. And furthermore, it even says that Hezbollah is the best rated military of the whole entire world. Now, if this is the case, then why are there so many articles that the affirmative team has talking about why Hezbollah and the LAF is actually bad in the current system? And you can remember my next point as misunderstanding. Now, an article written by Richard Ghazi on July 9, 2021 said, quote, "Skeptics highlight Hezbollah propaganda photos showcasing what are claimed to be American weapons and armored vehicles. This has been discredited by state. The LAF is confirmed to be in full compliance with the state's end-of-use monitoring system, which guards against the unauthorized transfer or use of U.S. technology and equipment." So what is actually happening in the current system is that Hezbollah is trying to have propaganda to try to show that there's U.S. weapons are being used by LAF. But in the current system, what the United States can actually confirm is that LAF is fully complicit, and there are no abuse with LAF and with the United States arms sales. So what's actually happening right now is that skeptics and the people who are writing the affirmative team's articles think that from these photos of propaganda, there's actually a problem in the current system and that LAF is getting the United States weapons. But what is actually happening as a result is that this is just fake evidence and fake photos trying to make propaganda so that the United States would take away LAF's weapons. Now, why would Hezbollah actually want propaganda for LAF, showing why LAF actually has U.S. weapons? And the reason that Hezbollah has propaganda, you can remember as America's national interest. America's national interest. So what's happening right now is, through this evidence I'm going to show, is that it's actually in the United States' national interest to be able to maintain ties with the LAF. And this is actually hurting Hezbollah. But what Hezbollah wants is, Hezbollah wants the world to think that LAF is actually a bad and corrupt organization. And when the world thinks that there's a bad and corrupt organization, they hopefully think that the United States will stop their arms sales to Lebanon so that they can, because this is in the best interest for Hezbollah. But what we can see through this point is that it's actually in the best interest for the United States to stay in this and to help LAF. And this is shown through an article by Richard Ghazi on July 9, 2021. It says, quote, "A key component of Iran's overreaching geopolitical objective is to isolate Lebanon from the United States and the West to steer them into the Iranian domain." So this article is actually specifically citing LAF. And what it's actually trying to show is that in the current system, what's happening is that Hezbollah is posting propaganda photos, trying to get a misunderstanding around the world to hopefully get U.S. to end arms sales to LAF, weakening the LAF and making it so that the United States is no longer connected to the Middle East. And this is actually exactly what our enemies want in the current system. And that's why it's in America's best interest to consider or to keep on having these military arms sales to the Lebanese LAF. And what's happening in the current system is that LAF is trying to get us to think, Hezbollah is trying to get us to think that these United States arms sales aren't being used for good. But what I've shown through evidence is that the United States says that LAF is actually the best military that we have worked with into the whole entire world. They have a 100% rating. But the reason why there's so many articles talking about why LAF is a horrible organization is because this is what Hezbollah wants us to think. When you pass the affirmative teams plan, all we're doing is going against the United States' national interests. Instead, we are helping our enemies by passing the affirmative teams plan. So what we can see from this point is that, yes, maybe there are atrocities being considered by Hezbollah, but what is happening is that Hezbollah does not actually own LAF in the current system. Hezbollah is tricking us, or trying to trick us into thinking that there is a problem in the current system with these U.S. arms sales. But in reality, there is no problem. This is exactly what Hezbollah wants us to think, and this is something that we cannot pass. And a further article to prove this is from Richard Ghazi on July 9th, 2021. It says the White House, State Department, Defense Department, and Congress have acknowledged the LAF's critical role in securing American interests in the Levant, and that it remains the only viable Lebanese institution to serve that role. Supplementary assistance to the LAF should be a cornerstone of the U.S. policy and engagement in the Levant at this critical juncture. So what this shows is that the United States government recognizes this propaganda, trying to get them to stop this arms sales to Lebanon. And what they actually recognize is that this aid that we're giving to Lebanon is should be a cornerstone of our policy. Essentially, it should be one of the most important things that we should have, because we need to have our influence in the Middle East right now. And what Hezbollah is trying to do is post propaganda so that we end our influence in the Middle East. The United States recognizes this, and the United States recognizes that the affirmative teams plan is not something that we should pass. Now, this leads me to my last point, which you can remember as little weapons given. Little weapons given. Now, in their 1AC, they're essentially talking about how there's $1.9 billion of sales given to Hezbollah through the United States. And I think that this evidence, while it may be cool, it may be talking about over the past 100 years. And it's not actually talking about the current system. I actually have a chart from the current system showing that there really aren't that many arms sales to Lebanon in the current system, but instead it's mostly aid, something that the United States, or the affirmative team, is not ending. And it's from the Stockholm International Peace Research Institute on 2013 to 2022. And it's just a chart, so I can't read you a chart, but I'll tell you what it says. And it really just says that there's 24 motors and 5 helicopters have been sold to Lebanon in the past 5 years. And additionally, it shows that there's $94 billion or $1 million in aid and so many other aiding projects in the current system. So while there evidence $1.9 billion in sales could be the past 100 years, what we can see in the current system is that the affirmative team is not ending the aid that we need to aid. At the end of the day, they do not have a practical policy. Thank you.